we're going to help people change their behavior, we really needed to understand, it's not just about coming up with a clever ad campaign, but what really is, how can we integrate our marketing communications to affect this change, but really follow this change behavior so it's effective and lasting.
This week's episode, we're talking about an idea that we're calling belief and behavior design. And it's not my idea. It's actually one that I chanced upon online, and it really struck a chord with me. And it came from a particular agency in Denver, Colorado called Cactus. And so we're lucky enough to have with us today that agency's founder, Joe Conrad. So welcome, Joe.
Thank you, Matt. It's really great to be here today.
And I understand you're both the founder and now the CEO of the agency. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I founded the company in Denver in 1990, so 30 years ago, and have just, been very grateful for the opportunity to be able to guide this agency through all the twists and turns of the last 3 decades, and really, and happy to say that I've always enjoyed coming to the office. There's a few bumps in the road, but really building a place where I wanted to hang my hat and welcome others to do that has really been an honor.
What is your role as a CEO now and as a founder? Are you in the office every day, or do you just come by to visit and kick things off, or how does that go?
I'm very much in the action. I'm surrounded by an amazing team. We've got a really strong leadership team that I rely on. And, I never really want to, I think, completely step out of the game. So while most of my time is spent guiding the ship, making sure that, we have the right client relationships, that we're chasing the right business, that we're competing and winning on that new business effort. And then really those client relationships, making sure that they're always strong and headed in the right trajectory. And then I do, on several accounts, still get very much involved in the strategic direction, the creative concepts that we're developing. And so I very much appreciate that. But mostly these days, it's about making sure that we have the right people on our team and that everybody's working really well together.
Sure. I think I was just sharing how I discovered you guys in the online context, and kind of was struck by this phrase, belief and behavior design. And the way that it landed for me was that I often think about what is the real primary ethos of an agency. Like for Eisenberg, we talk about this principle that guides our work called listen, create, share, where we think of our work as a virtuous cycle, that we start with listening, and then we make something, and then we share it, and then we listen again, and adapt that way. And you say, probably because my experience has been when you're talking to great and creative agencies, we each recognize the strength in one another's ethos. So, I think of our ethos of listen, create, share as having a place for disruption. We've lived, you and I, in the last decade and a half with Chiat Day's disruption as the example of a principle that guides an agency, right? And then, I think it's Crispin Porter had, be famous. So I immediately was struck by belief and behavior design falling into that category. I thought, here is an idea of how to approach the work of advertising through a really distinctive lens. And I'm wondering, was that there at the founding? Like, can you tell me more about the founding of the agency and what brought you to this really kind of cool ethos?
Yeah, it wasn't there at the beginning as far as our process. So belief and behavior design is our how. It's the process that we've put in place that really helps us do the best work we can for our clients and help them accomplish their objectives. But it was a part of our original founding. So when we founded the agency, it really was as a purpose-driven shop. Now this is 1990, and every day you hear someone else claiming to be purpose-driven, and that's great that is such a prominent thing in today's society. But back then it was not really heard of, and the founding of the agency really was about me working in other places. I was only 26 at the time, so I was probably too stupid to know better. But I really wanted to build a place that respected its people, There was a fun place to go work every day, and most importantly, a place where I can put my talents to work for brands, organizations, and causes that I believed in. And I thought, if we can help nonprofit organizations, which was really kind of the genesis, if we could help nonprofit organizations who have a really important mission, if we can help them tell their story better, grow in size and scope, and be more successful through better branding and marketing, that might be a pretty cool thing. And so that was really the impetus for starting Cactus. And it's always remained a core value of the agency.
So, as a table setter on this topic of belief and behavior design, I was wondering, you talked about it being your how. Would you contend that belief and behavior design can be applied to any client or any space?
Absolutely. It's incredibly flexible. And I think the good sign of good attributes of a process that is a quality one is that it is very flexible, and you can apply it to any situation, whether it's a product, whether it's a service, a nonprofit, an election, the pandemic. I mean, if you think about the pandemic and COVID-19 and this gestalt shift that the whole world went through and the changes that we went through in this country, it is the best example of behavior change. I mean, in just a matter of weeks or matter of months for some people, and some people haven't got the message yet, but the fact that everybody could change their behavior almost overnight in a very dramatic way around the globe because we had a common belief that we needed to do this to be safe. So even something as global as the pandemic, I think belief and behavior, it's a symbiotic relationship between the two. And so you can really look at it in a macro way or a micro way. We believe that every brand has either a belief challenge or a behavior challenge, or probably both. And the truth of it is that most brands probably have hundreds of belief and behavior challenges. And so we really use it as a filter as we do a 360 audit of a brand and looking at all the issues and opportunities that exist to really shine a light on where belief is driving behavior or behavior is driving belief or the lack thereof. And it really is very flexible in how we apply it.
That's fascinating. Yeah. Does it have a particularly strong role in purpose-driven marketing? And actually, it's a good something I do often now in episodes is spend a little time at the beginning just kind of bulleting a glossary for people of like, here's some of the things we're going to talk about and what we mean by them. So maybe we start there. As if I threw at you the term purpose-driven marketing, what does that mean to you?
I think purpose-driven marketing is really aligning what the organization believes in as a company and also in its products. And it's acting like that in the world. So it's not just saying that, but it's really acting like that. And so being purpose-driven, I think, is really coming from a place that is sincere, transparent, and I think very positive.
Do most of your clients you find nowadays when you're beginning there, if it is a purpose-driven campaign, because I know that's not exclusively what Cactus does anymore, but if it is, do they already do they typically already have an understanding of, well, another term I'll throw at you, core values, where they're starting from, or is that part of your process is identifying those core values, and what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I think it's really about, some brands are much more evolved than others in realizing the importance of that. And so I think we encounter all sorts of different situations. But even in those more advanced companies that feel like they really have it down, we're really able to come in and shine a light on, if these are your core values, are you living it? Is this something that you're promoting and exhibiting day to day? If we went out and talked to your employees, would they reinforce that? And, do they believe what the corporation believes? And are they behaving in a way that supports that? When we look at their customers, are the customers, do they believe that? Do we need to reinforce that? Is there some behavior that we need to look at? So I think that those core values. And sometimes there's new brands that we're creating from scratch. And there's an opportunity with a clean slate to really align those things to make sure that you understand what the product is, who it's for, what those values are, and that there is alignment between all of them. Oftentimes with older companies with, a lot of legacy messaging or positions or missions in place, you really need to come in and either tweak them or overhaul them to make sure that they're current, relevant, and really on purpose.
And so, what do you do when you find that a brand is out of alignment in a particular area? Like the employees
Yeah.
say, hey, that's actually, I don't know if that's really what this company believes because I'm not experiencing it every day as part of our agency culture. Then what do you do? Because that's not really necessarily fixing that, isn't marketing, or is it? What do you do in that case?
Yeah, well, I think the important thing is that this idea of belief and behavior design oftentimes won't be a marketing solution. It might be, but it might not be. And so, in the situation that you described, if you really shine a light on the employees and what they think and what they believe, and you find a gap there, our job is to deliver that news to the powers that be and say, hey, you have a breakdown here. This is what your company stands for. These are your core values. But you know what? Your own employees, to a large extent, aren't buying into it anymore. And so it's like recognizing a bad habit, right? You can't change that habit until you recognize it's an issue. And so sometimes just examining it, and I think that's what's so helpful about the filter that we use, is it helps us look into corners that maybe we wouldn't have, and it shines a light on areas that maybe need to be cleaned up, and then we can put forward strategies, tactics, programs that proactively deal with that.
I mean, it strikes me that you're prepared in a great way to deal with this interconnectedness. Like the way you're describing it is the way that people often describe personal journeys that they go on, either in religion or through meditation, where they begin to connect that all of these different aspects of their life are related to one another, their physical well-being, their spiritual well-being, and so it sounds like you're taking brands and clients on that journey, and you're prepared to help in a variety of ways with it, right?
Yeah, and helping clients realize how interconnected and how essential all of that is. If you think about all the behavior that we exhibit, it's really about the habits that we form that lead up to that, either good habits or bad habits. And I think an organization is very complex, and so it probably has a lot more issues that it needs to delve into than even the average human being, because there's so many different moving parts that make up that whole.
You've already done a lot of, I think, contextual sharing for us of how belief and behavior design evolved, and some of the tenets of how that process works. Can you go a little further to define what it is and how you've developed it as a process at your agency?
Yeah, you know what? We came by it quite honestly, and it very much organically grew out of the work that we were doing. Because we were a purpose-driven agency, we were drawn to do a lot of cause-related marketing or social marketing to help people change behaviors. So, in the late 90s, we did a lot of work around helping people stop doing destructive things to themselves and start making smarter, healthier choices. So, we did campaigns for smoking cessation and prevention among teen and young adults. We promoted the responsible use of marijuana. We did campaigns about opioid addiction and trying to get people to change behavior there. And then probably the most challenging assignment we were given is, how can you prevent suicide among working age men? And so through all of these campaigns, we really latched on to behavioral science, and there's a behavior change model that is pretty straightforward. And we really learned the science behind it, because if we were going to help people change their behavior, we really needed to understand, it's not just about coming up with a clever ad campaign, but what really is, how can we integrate our marketing communications to affect this change, but really follow this change behavior so it's effective and lasting. And if you look at the change model, the stages of change are pre-contemplation, contemplation, determination, action, maintenance, and then relapse or re-enter into the program. So there really is a process that you have to go through. You have to put it on somebody's map, get their attention, get them to think about it, get them to make a plan, and then they'll take action. And when we lined that up against the McKinsey model of the acceptance funnel, it's very similar. You've got awareness, interest, consideration, trial, purchase, and then retention. So they're very similar, but they're trying to accomplish different things. So we really applied this behavior change model when we were trying to help teenagers stop smoking or never start smoking. And we learned a lot, and it became part of our DNA and that process that we would go through. So we then were able to combine that with good old-fashioned agency creativity and strategy and be able to apply it to our other private sector brands.
So you kind of discovered this process, and then ultimately, do you actually have a formal process of kind of training it within your agency?
We do, yeah. In onboarding and training, we describe belief and behavior design, how we came about it, that everybody's role in not only understanding it, but practicing it. And so it is very much becoming more and more part of our agency culture. And I think, the ultimate campaign that really brought all this together was the Man Therapy campaign that we launched about 8 years ago.
I encourage everyone to go to the website and check that out. The elements of it that are up on the website are really, it's a great campaign.
Yeah, and I think, I was one of these people that always felt like any problem could be solved with communications, with effective communications. I really believed that, and I still do today. But I was tested when we were given this assignment to help working age men stop killing themselves. It's a huge problem, not only in this country, but around the world. And we discovered no one had ever done a campaign targeting this specific demographic. And so I felt like we'd met our match. I mean, it's such a complex, dark issue. Can an ad campaign, can a billboard, can a website really affect this issue? And I wasn't sure if we could crack this one. But our team really did an amazing job, because on a shoestring budget, we applied this process of belief and behavior design and really tried to get at the issues. And it really came down to two primary things with Man Therapy. The belief problem that we were facing, the big belief problem we had to tackle, was that men didn't think therapy was for them. They didn't identify with that. They were raised to just suck it up, to not cry, to just work through it. And that is, in our genes as men, and it's culturally, I think really driven into us. And so the first thing we had to change is make it relatable, that therapy is something men can relate to. And then the behavior challenge was to get men to do something about it, to take charge of their mental health and take action. So the way we attacked it is we used our advertising campaign, TV, radio, outdoor, and digital, to really reframe the conversation. We used humor as a bridge to really get guys to think about, you can't fix your mental health with duct tape. You really do need to go beyond it. And therapy is something that is accessible to you. Therapy comes in many forms. And so the campaign really broke through that stigma by making people laugh and lean in and think, maybe I should check this out. And then the way we changed behavior was we actually built a website where you could interact with it in a confidential, anonymous way through the website. We have a 20-point head inspection, and it's fun to take. It's more like a BuzzFeed quiz. And at the end of it, it highlights areas in your life that you may want to take a second look at. So, therapy is actually happening on the site because we're creating more awareness. We're getting people to contemplate and plan to do something about it. And then we lead them to resources that will encourage them to take that first step, to take action. So I think that's kind of the Uber case for when it really came together for us of this is really a powerful thing. And it allowed us to create this technology platform that has really gone on to grow into a number of different verticals.
It struck me as you were describing it that one of the things that your team is doing there too is really changing the frame of reference of the space in which we're allowed to work on an advertising campaign with the consumer. And what I mean by that is that most, or many at least, of our other ethoses as a collection of advertising agencies are designed at mastering like a moment, basically creating that fear of missing out, that desire to have something that you don't have in a particular moment. And what you're describing doing is actually looking at the problem and then going like way upstream to how men are, and what we and looking at essentially changing belief that is inherited way back in our social upbringing and systems. Have you guys been, do you think about that of sort of like where do we get in to begin the belief and behavior design process?
Yeah, it's a really insightful observation, and that's exactly what we do. And I think it gives us license to really go where the problem resides or where the solution resides and really uncover some of that. And so, there's numerous examples where we've done that, but I think you're spot on.
And how did it, as you were about to say, light up a bunch of technological innovations?
When we launched Man Therapy, this was in 2008, and this is a small campaign that had no budget. It was a passion project of the agency. And on just a few dollars, we produced this multimedia integrated digital campaign that is still alive today. So because we created it with some partners and on our dime, we own all the IP and all the technology behind it. And so Man Therapy, we licensed the campaign to Australia. We have 12 states around the country that license Man Therapy as kind of a turnkey suicide prevention effort. And so it's still alive and growing today. There's a lot more we can do with that because I think there's a place in the world for a men's mental health brand. And that's exactly what Man Therapy is. And when you talk about going upstream, you really hit the nail on the head there that the big aha with Man Therapy is that if you wait until a man is in crisis to try to intervene, you're too late. Most men, when they do attempt suicide, are unfortunately successful the first time. So the message was we needed to go way upstream with that. We needed to get way out in front of it and connect the dots with guys well before they were in crisis where they can actually do something about it. So there was a lot of ahas that came out of it. And there was this technology platform that really mimicked how, somebody could interact with it and have a really meaningful engagement and then kind of learn something about themselves and then take the next step towards improving themselves in any part of their life. So I think there were a lot of things that came out of that campaign that really shaped our agency, how we think, how we operate, and really the technology platform that we continue to evolve.
Yeah, I am really intrigued by the idea of licensing the campaign and making it essentially repeatable in other mediums or other parts of the world. Because, I think, I can't remember if it was actually during this conversation that you referred to it, but it is, it's something that at Eisenberg with our entertainment clients, we are often struggling with is to get them to see that, like the movie business, for example, which I've, or the games business, which I work in with much more frequency now. They're launching a video game, often a new title, and they're doing all this work to build this fan base and engage them and get them, connected and in the funnel. And then once that game launches, historically, in many areas of advertising, or that product launches, less so for boxed goods and products like that, but there's a letting go of all that work that's been done and you start over with the next game, and you build it up again. And so we're fighting the fact, in advertising that it's very hard to make it repeatable, right? Like, which is when we can make it repeatable, like any area of the, economy, that's where we begin to really create a strong fiscal foundation, right? So I'm presuming that was the motivation, right, in looking for the opportunity to make a campaign licensable. But had anyone, I've never heard of it before. Had anyone done it before? And who was it? And how did you, what does it mean? Like, did you license technology or ideas, or how does one go about doing that?
Yeah, I think, you know, like many people in creative agencies, we're always producing ideas for clients, really game changing, big ideas. And we've always thought, well, we should do that for ourselves. And we played with a few things that never worked out. And this one really kind of happened because we were trying to solve for a problem. And I think that that's that purpose driven, right? Like when you just have your head down and you're really trying to do your best to solve for something, it's really something special can happen. And that's what happened with Man Therapy. We were lucky because it got a New York Times article when we launched it, because we use humor to attack suicide. But because of the web, that first day we had hits from, I think, 72 different countries around the world. We started to get inquiries from different places. And so we knew we had something kind of special. I also knew that every other state had no funding for suicide prevention. I knew every other state had really high incidence of male suicide, and that they had no budget and no campaign to do anything with it. So, we started to just promote it through the public health world that we were a part of, and then people would start inquiring, and it kind of happened naturally. And we're like, well, we should maybe package this and start letting other people use it. And so the way it works with Man Therapy in the States is there's two parts to it, right? You have the website, and so if Maine is just about to license Man Therapy, so we'll load up all their local resources on it. So somebody can have an experience on the website, learn a lot about themselves, you connect to our universal resources, and more importantly, connect to on-the-ground resources in Maine. So that's one half of it. The other half of it is you have to drive people to the website in the first place. So that's where our more traditional above-the-line marketing assets come into play. And we give them all those. We have over 50 different marketing assets. We create new materials for first responders, for veterans, for construction, extraction industry, agricultural industry. So we've got all these materials. It's a campaign ready to go. So it works really easily. And so we weren't doing it as a business model. We were doing it as a way to extend our reach and impact. And when we licensed it to Australia, we helped them transcreate it. They basically took Man Therapy and dipped it in Australian culture. And it really pissed me off for a while, because they put so much money into their campaign. They were driving more Australian men to our US website than we had US men going there. So, but it was a really interesting experience. And that was kind of our first taste into, oh, maybe we can create things and then resell them. So that was our first experience with it.
Yeah, I really like the reminder that you embedded in there too, that the driving impulse was to extend impact and continue to pursue your purpose. And it just happens, and this is something that I'm always seeking to kind of reinforce in my teams and in my life, that when you are doing the right thing, you will find over time that the right things will happen, and you will have enough money and enough success and enough of the things that if you set out to seek them on their own, achieving them is rather temporal, whereas if you create a sustained foundation of being driven by purpose, you can never fail in a way, because you're always in pursuit of that goal.
It's very well said. And I think there's nothing probably more true that I've experienced than what you just stated. And I think there's evidence of that continuing. So, about 5 years ago, Man Therapy had been out there for a few years. About 5 years ago, I got a call from my alma mater, Colorado State University, and they had 17 suicides on campus in a 2-year period. So they were freaking out, but they weren't alone. Every college campus in the country is dealing with this. Teen suicide is on the rise, unfortunately. And so they knew about Man Therapy, and they called me up there just to kind of have a meeting to talk about it. And so we really, explored, well, can we bring Man Therapy to the campus? We did some research with students showing the guys Man Therapy, and it didn't really test well with them. And that was only a solution for just men. So, it's more for guys like us, not for a 20-year-old, certainly not for a 20-year-old woman, right? So, but we learned a lot just in that test. And this is where what you were just talking about repeated itself. I really felt driven to try to come up with something to address this issue. And I knew I had all the lessons that we had learned from man therapy, and I thought, how can I take that and recreate something and use a student-centered design process to really make sure that it resonates with, a college student today. And so we started with doing research. It always begins by trying to uncover what they believe and how they're behaving and what's getting in the way of their college experience. And so we learned some fascinating things. We learned that, a young person would say, I'm really struggling. I'm away from home for the first time and I feel really lonely. I haven't met many people. Everybody seems to have it figured out. I don't know what I want to do. Class is harder than I thought, so I'm falling behind. It's really stressing me out. So I'm not sleeping and self-medicating to deal with it. But when we would talk about mental health, they'd be like, oh, no, I don't have any mental health issues. And the light bulb just went on like, oh my gosh, it's just life coming at these young people very fast. And everybody is on their own journey, right? Like there's no one story that sums up everybody's experiences. And that's when, I had the idea for the well-being platform and brought our team in to start collaborating. And we developed a plan and a strategy, and we went up and presented it, and they were all in. They were like, yeah, let's do this. So we built the U Wellbeing platform in collaboration with Colorado State University. We took like a year to build it. We wanted to make sure all the stakeholders, we were addressing all their needs. And I think the thing that has made it successful is we put students at the center of what we were designing. And that never happens on a college campus. Everything is done within a silo with a program or a college. And, the websites aren't elegant. They're not mobile friendly. They have amazing resources to offer students, but they're not finding them or interacting with them. And we decided to create an experience that really put the student at the center and personalize well-being for every single student. So it really meets them where they're at and helps them kind of navigate life and campus and really knock down any hurdle early on and take advantage of that amazing experience that they have in front of them. So we launched U at college at Colorado State in 2015, and the test went so well, they expanded it to the entire university. And that's when I really decided that instead of just doing another passion project, that we would start a for-profit company to really expand on this idea and to scale it and to bring it out to not only higher ed, but to other verticals. And, I didn't want to go do a nonprofit where you had to beg for money and kind of write grants. I wanted to deliver a true value proposition to higher ed and to students and their parents. And if we were able to deliver that and it had value and utility, that we would be able to sell it to other campuses. And so thankfully, that's what's happened. We're at 130 campuses today and growing, and it's a really exciting new business. So we formed Grit Digital Health to really attack behavioral health issues using creativity and technology.
Yeah, again, accessible through the website. So I did a little bit of reading about that as well, and I was thoroughly impressed. And it reminds me that I wanted to. That seems like it's getting. Now you have a part of your organization that is actually dealing in a really direct way with behavioral science and making a difference in the world. And I'm reminded of something that we spoke about earlier in this conversation, which is, and we were talking about it looking outward at clients, but I wonder how much Cactus has looked inward at its own culture and its own community. How have you applied some of these ideas to the well-being of the people that work at the company that's creating them?
Yeah. It would be a huge miss if we got that one wrong. And so I think, culture has always been very important to us. And it's not something that you can really just tell somebody about. You almost have to experience it. And I believe that, it really is something that has to happen organically. If you try to manufacture culture, it never is successful. I think it really has to come and be a natural thing. But you also have to kind of document it and talk to people about it and then support them in a lot of different ways so that you're living it, right? You're not just saying it, but like we tell brands, you actually have to behave like that. It's about brand action. And so we really try to live by that ourselves. We have, 6 values that describe the agency. They're passion, courage, tenacity, respect, collaboration, and critical thought. And so these are things that we remind people of on a regular basis. It's in our onboarding handbook. Well, we bring it up all the time that we really want to push one another to do our very best work, and to do that in a respectful way, to push the ideas, and to be a critical thinker, right? To not just accept something. And so it's something that we just try to behave and practice what we preach. And so we decided, well, if this well-being platform is so great for college students or for first responders, why don't we turn it on ourselves and create a version for our agency? So about a year ago, we launched You at Cactus. So the You Wellbeing Platform is the name of it. So we transcreated it for our agency. And I think what's interesting about the technology is we really developed something that personalizes the experience to every individual. So if you do a proper job of populating it with content that is really good and relevant and interesting and useful to that population, and then you also combine it with resources, whether they're HR, EAP resources, cactus culture, handbooks, things like that, it could be a really good experience. And so we did launch the You at Cactus platform. It's been out there for a year now. And I think our employees not only use it, but I think they really appreciate that we're kind of, walking what we talk.
Definitely. I wish we had it at our agency,
You can. No,
Yeah.
one thing we decided to do, on our 30th anniversary, everybody, like, nobody really cares that it's your anniversary, like it's kind of a celebration, and we're certainly going to tell the world about it. But I think, it's one of those things you just kind of click through in your feed. But what we decided to do is let's give a gift back to this amazing industry that's helped all of us enjoy our careers so much. And so we are going to be launching You at Agency. So it's an open platform. It won't be customized to any one agency. It'll just be an open platform full of really great content and resources for anybody in the creative industry. And so hopefully we'll get
Wow.
some good
Okay.
feedback on that, and would love it if you could help push that out when it is live and ready to go. And then we're also going to offer an option for any agency to brand it and add their own specific human resources and cultural items that they want to further customize it to their agency. But I think just the general version will be really a good tool for people, especially in these times that we're going through right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, first of all, that's an amazing. I got my wish. I wished it, and you made it so. But I also think it's interesting how there are some very specific challenges within our industry, to maintaining well-being and balance in life. It's funny, but like back way before I got into advertising, I was more directly involved in content and entertainment. I came out here and was making, I was a writer, director, actor, making theater, founded a theater company, and I'll never forget that, one of the real challenges for actors and creators in that space is that so much of their work is tied with their identity in a way that, and at the same time, their work, is the purpose of it is to have judgment passed on it immediately. You either get a standing ovation at the end of the show or you don't, And so what happens to creatives and creators in that space is that they start losing the separation of themselves from the creative output that they make. And when that happens, then every lack of the outcome that they want with regard to their work is taken as a judgment on them, and they're prone, to depression and anxiety and all of these feelings that are related to not being able to separate themselves from their work. And I've reflected a lot over, the years that I've been developing an advertising career, that same thing happens here, that within the walls of our agency, is that you're so invested as a team in the success of the work that on those many occasions for many reasons outside of your control that it doesn't meet with the goal, the success that you want, or the goals that you're looking for, you just it's a very personal blow.
It really is. I don't know if anybody else pours as much heart and soul into work, and oftentimes it just never leaves the agency. It ends up on the floor, or even if it makes it and you're in a pitch and it makes it to and you don't get picked and someone else does, and that work just disappears into the world. And I think that's yeah, it certainly creates even more stress and anxiety, I think, than the typical job.
So, one of the things that we've been talking a lot about the ways that belief and behavior design evolved naturally out of a devotion to this health and well-being space. So, I'm curious, can you share any examples of how you've applied these principles to other clients and other campaigns that don't have a health component to them?
Yeah, absolutely. It's extremely flexible, and I think it'll work in any situation. One example would be credit unions. So credit unions, their history is that they come from a teachers union or an airline workers union, and it was only for those people that could go to that credit union. So they've changed their charters, and like any other bank, anybody who lives in that region can go and bank at a credit union. So we work with quite a few credit unions, and what we discovered early on is the big belief problem that they have is that most of the consumers in their target area don't think that they can bank at that credit union because they're not a member, because they call everybody members. And they don't think that they're as sophisticated as maybe a bank is. So there's two really important belief problems. Like if you can't tackle that, you're going to have a hard time getting anyone to adopt you. So we really knew where we needed to go, right? We needed to shine and focus all of our communications higher up the funnel to really talk about membership and that we are as sophisticated as a bank and you can bank here, being very overt about that, being very direct in our messaging, and then talking about the values of membership, obviously. So changing that belief is going to get someone to maybe consider you. But the other thing that we discovered with many of them is when somebody would try to go up and open an account, so the campaign worked, right? And they would investigate, I'm going to take action and open an account. And if that sign up procedure isn't streamlined and simple and creates confidence and security, then you're going to lose them just like that. So, that behavior, the way you're behaving and the way you're interacting with a prospect can really affect that outcome. So, you have to change both things at the same time. So those are just two big belief and behavior issues that we often would go in and fix. But if you look layers down, there's also micro things that need to be addressed. So I think that's one example that I would offer.
That's a great example. Before we get out of here, I was wondering, do you have any at hand, any metrics with regard to, I'm thinking the man therapy campaign, that sort of, I think it's such a meaningful campaign that I think it might be nice to sort of hear what kind of a measurable impact it had in the places that it has reached men. And also, it's just always a good way to kind of sum up why we do what we do.
Sure. I mean, you always want to measure whether or not you're moving the needle. And so, we measure things usually in short term, midterm, and long term. And so those short term metrics are just as important. And if you're going to start shifting belief, you really need to monitor where the belief is now and where you're pushing it to, whether it's internal or external. But with man therapy, we've been really pleased with what we've been able to accomplish without any real significant ad budget. This is just organic kind of word of mouth spread that this campaign has experienced. And so in the past 8 years, we have 1.5 million unique visitors to the site. Of that, about 500,000 men have completed the 18-point head inspection. We've had about 250,000 men actually click the red button, which connects them to the crisis hotline. And so we have lots of data and analytics that the site is working really well. Time on site is still hovering above 5 minutes per visit. So people are, which is just unheard of. Most brands would kill for that. So it's really engaging content, and people are spending a lot of time and coming back to the site often. But the most important thing are the stories that we hear. And, we have just a ream of letters and emails that have been sent to us about how this website really helped me, how much I love it. And we even received a voicemail in the middle of the night from a man in Michigan who said that this website saved my life last night. And so getting that kind of feedback, you start to realize that, wow, this stuff really is making an impact out there. It's affecting people. And then the thing that we're most excited about is 4 years ago, the CDC decided there was so much interest in man therapy to do a clinical study of it. So they funded $1.2 million research grant to study man therapy in the state of Michigan. And those results are just being published next month. And so we have overwhelming evidence that not only is it a clever campaign, it looks like it works from our analytics, but we're now going to be able to call it an evidence-based program that really can be an important tool in the suicide prevention effort. And so I think that's going to be a game changer and really gives us that seal of approval that I think a lot of organizations will really rally behind.
Yeah, that's amazing. And 30 years ago, did you know? Now I'm proud of you for your 30th anniversary. I was trying to remember when you said that before, I was thinking, what is that 30th anniversary story? And I realized suddenly I have a 4-year-old right now. And so just every other day I watch Wreck-It Ralph. And in Wreck-It Ralph, it's the 30th anniversary of Fix-It Felix that drives him to leave the game and start a new life and really change the world. So perhaps your 30th anniversary is a whole new beginning, and we're about to experience 30 more years of belief and behavior design realizing its full potential, because the stories you've told today strike me as just astounding in terms of both their practical application for the people that watch this show. I think it's a brand new lens for me, and I think for many others of how to look at the challenge of addressing an audience with a client's brand or product and wanting to get them to embrace it. It's a new way of thinking about how to do that, and I'm sure it's going to be very powerful for people. So congratulations to you, and thank you for being with us. And hopefully we can have you back in a little while and find out how those numbers came out in Michigan.
Anytime, Matt. I really appreciate the time today. You're really talented at this and getting people to open up, and your insights and questions are very insightful. So I've enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of Listen In. You'll always find us streaming on LinkedIn, along with live chat comments from myself and guests. After the stream is over, we archive the show here on our LinkedIn page for Eisenberg, and you'll also find the episodes at AListDaily.com. So have a great week, and as always, keep your ears on.